Welcome to the Nock On Archery Podcast, where we bring all archers and bow hunters together from all walks of life with the goal to educate, empower, and inspire you to be better both in the field and on the range. All right, Nock On, everybody. New Nock On Podcast, and I've got my good buddy, Mike Slinkard. I always it's like a tradition for us. Spring kicks it off, doesn't it?
Seems like it. Yeah. It's March or April, we usually get together and catch up a little bit.
I just got that top right there too, by the way. It's pretty awesome. That thing's going to be good in the blind for me.
Yeah, they really are. This hooded shirt thing has been, a lot of people really like it. I like it all the time. It's got this built-in face cover, and of course the hood and all that stuff, and hex all the way through. And it's just basically a kind of a lightweight hoodie, but man, it's about all I wear hunting. I've got, camo ones and this regular ones as well. So they've been a big hit for us.
I've turned into a customer on this podcast. Sorry, everybody. I have one more question for Mike. Do you have gloves in a solid yet?
No. I do have gloves, but we're not doing them in a solid. We did, when it very first came out, we did them in a black for a while. And actually, when we did the camo, they sold so much better that we really haven't put them back out in a solid. However, with the wildlife line, we probably are going to have to do that. So
yeah, even that drab green, drab, either one of those two greens would totally be perfect. Perfect.
And we actually probably have some fabric to do that out of, actually, now I'm thinking about it. But maybe we'll do that. But it work definitely with the wildlife line, and of course, in a blind or anything like that.
Hey, do you feel like with if you're wearing that built-in hoodie, do you think you still need the full hood for turkeys, or can you?
Not at all. No, not at all. As a matter of fact, what I do is I just put the hood itself up, and then you kind of got the whole coverage and everything like that. But what's nice about this, you can just throw that up and down, and it's kind of doesn't have to be up all the time. You just put it up kind of when you need it and all that. But if you put the hood up, you've got the same coverage pretty much as you would with the hood anyway.
Our spring turkeys opens Monday. So, and as much as I want to shoot one again out of a chair with my hex, it's going to be freaking 27 degrees opening day. So my options are either I'm going to be sitting in my chair in a fanatic suit, looking like a big, the kid from Christmas Story, sitting out there waiting on a turkey to come, strutting up with frostbite on his feet, or I'm gonna take a heater into my muddy blind and just be a real loser in there.
Your 20-year-old self would kick your ass on that one, buddy.
It totally would.
I don't blame you though. Too. Ours starts on the 15th, so it's coming right up, and it was 75 degrees here yesterday. We were out scouting. We had birds gobbling everywhere. It was nuts. And opening day is supposed to be a chance of snow and wind and all kinds of stuff. So it's springtime, I guess.
I actually, I really like hunting turkeys in the snow, to be honest with you. I've done it a few times here in Iowa during the opening week, but I've also had some really cool hunts in Nebraska and South Dakota during the openers where it was snow. And one story is horrible. I don't know if I've ever told you this one. My really good buddy, Justin Hackett, him and I went out and we scouted this whole area, and we found turkeys, and they were all roosted in the exact same 100-yard stretch of this ridge. And honestly, they were all pitching down and going straight to this cow lot. And I think they were just picking around in the cow manure.
Yeah, probably.
So honestly, the choice was either we put the blind just inside of the non-cattle pasture, which anyone who's owned a blind and put it in a cattle pasture knows that's probably the smartest play, or put it in the cattle pasture and literally be like a a rat turd in a sugar bowl just sitting out there, and if they don't go to pick through crap all day, then you're just sitting out there like idiots and you can't do anything. So we went just inside the fence, and we could tell that they were roosting somewhat close. So anyway, I go out. We're in this small little town where food was limited, and there was a local bar that also had food, and it was like Friday night. So they had, how some of the Western, you're from there. So, like Friday, Saturdays, you can normally get some chow. So I me being like the clean eater of the crew, I order a steak, and I tried to order vegetables, and they said, we have steak and fries or a baked potato. And I said, do you have anything green? And they go, well, we have a salad bar in the back. So I was the only one to go back there and go through the salad bar, and the dressing, I kind of questioned the dressing. Like, has this been kept cold? And, it kind of looked like sketchy tuna fish at Subway when they like take the scoop, but it's like a different color. So, and I'm just like,
I think I know where this story's going, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I did it, dude. I just dipped down in there, and next thing I know, we are, I shouldn't say we, I am at the hotel, bent over, just in the sweats, just puking my guts out till I don't even know. And it triggered one of my migraines. So I'm just like, I am hurting. I'm like stripped down to my undies, sweating. And Justin's just looking at me like he'd wake up every now and then when he'd hear me heaving, and he'd just be like, dang, bro, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'll be okay. I just hope it goes away. And like, meanwhile, I'm looking at my watch, like 3:45, alarm's going off, and we're going to have to, pack up, drive out to this place, walk across, which we do. And I'm hurting. He's like, the whole time he's like, dude, are you sure you want to come? And I'm like, I said, if I'm sick, I might as well be sick in the blind. So I went in the blind, and this is actually the shot that was, I think I called it the Tombstone. So we're sitting in there, and as we're in the blind, like, it's pitch black, and we're waiting for daylight, and I'm just hurting. I'm just like bent over there, and just like I think I was like kind of gagging a few times, but nothing came up, And then I definitely could hear something like hitting the blind, and I didn't really know what it was. And then all of a sudden, it just got light enough to where one turkey gobbled, and then it was a gobble for like 2 minutes. There was, I would say, 100 birds literally straight above the blind. What I was hearing hit the blind was crap.
It's crap.
There was there was so many gobbles that, we were like afraid to do anything. We kind of like slid the window down really small, and I'm like looking up in the skyline, and I'm like, there's so many black balls up there. I'm like, they're right here. And honestly, I felt like they were so close that they weren't even going to be able to I felt like when they pitched out, they were just going to be too far.
Away from it.
Yeah, because they were just right there. So I'm sitting in there fighting this back, and we'd flipped for who got to shoot first because both of us had multiple tags. Mm-hmm. So I'm first up. And all of a sudden, like, I kind of like made one little yelp, and I just heard like that. And I look out the window, and a gobbler just literally like opened his wings and just went like, and he was just sitting, he was like literally just sitting there in a ball, like right next to the decoy. And I'm like, screw it. Mm-hmm. So actually, I think before that, I could be wrong, but I think right prior to that, I actually had like a big like lurch, and so I was just like, and I like pushed the side. I think I pulled the side window down, or I might have lifted it up, and I'm just like, it just funneled out like Stand By Me, and,
oh my gosh.
And my Ralph set off the gobbles. So when I lurched, dude, they were all gobbling, and it was so loud, and I'm going like, "Ugh," and they're going, and so then all of a sudden I hear like, and like one just dropped right into the decoys. So I just like grabbed my bow. I'm like, "Are you on him?" Didn't even milk it or nothing. I pulled back and shot, and the arrow hit him, and he literally like jumped up and was stiff. By the time he hit the top of his jump, he was stiff, and then just like came down like solid. Like it just, it stoned him. Like, and I just called it the tombstone, because he jumped up and then just like laid down in his grave. Boom. And so once that happened, then I go, "Dude, I'm sorry, but I'm like, it's coming out the other end." So I got up and like backed up the side door of this bail blind, and just freaking Dorothy Lynch or whatever kind of salad dressing that freaking killed me, just freaking painted everything around this blind. And he's just sitting there like, dude. And meanwhile, another turkey comes down that he's like getting ready to like, that turkey's strutting, and it's out there like 45 yards, like strutting around. We're in this blind, and I'm trying to be really quiet and just hurting. And luckily, like the window was like facing towards that cow lot. So the turkey, and the gobbling and the yelping was so loud. Because I'm not kidding. They were in a winter phase where they were all together, Right. And, so then after I totally like was flushed, naturally, all of a sudden I'm like, "Dude, I apologize, but I gotta pee so bad now," because it like triggered something, and there was like so much that came out everywhere that it's just like, "Hey, there's one more spot." So I just freaking peed in the blind, and it was snow, and so there's just this steam like, and I've got a green headlamp, and it looks like we're in a piss sauna, and there's like, and it's his blind, and he's like he's taking it really well, because he knows. I mean, it sounds funny now, but I was so miserable. I had I had really bad food poisoning, and he's just sitting there like trying to stay quiet. And then I finally go, "Okay, I'm ready." And I got on that bird, and then he shot that bird. So we were able to get a double, but like when all the, I shouldn't say dust settled, because it was a disaster. He's just like, "Dude, do you want to buy this blind from me?" I'm like,
"Because I'm going to throw in the dumpster, right?"
Yeah, I go, "Yeah, I owe you that." Yeah, it was horrible, but hey, that was also a hex moment. Everything was looking around.
We'll probably not put that one on the website. Just saying, John. I just hope we still have somebody that's still listening to the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. Caleb pretty much tells me, he's like, "If I sit with you long enough, I'm going to hear a crap story." And the truth is, I think if you're in the woods enough and on the road enough, those things happen.
They do.
They do. So
issues in the woods that way happen more often than we're ever going to admit, and there's a reason we don't admit them, but they happen. They really do. One time I shot an elk, kind of the same kind of thing, back in my misfit youth, I call it. I was been out probably partying a little bit more than I should have been, and Dad and I were out hunting, and he calls this freaking bull in, and actually he came in quiet, and like I said, I was doing the kind of, I wasn't throwing up, but I was doing the other thing, and this bull came in, and I just grabbed my bow, actually shot the bull then while I was kind of there. So anyway, and that's a story I never told anybody either, and so I'm not going to tell it again.
Well, the first thing that I actually wanted to talk about on this podcast was your coastal hunt. honestly. And I mean, did that go as planned, or was that a shitty subject too?
No, that one actually was a good one. That one was, you couldn't have planned one any better. Actually, that one was, the brown bears one that's kind of a bucket lister for me. I love hunting bears anyway, and they're the biggest that there are pretty much. And it started all the way back in 2018. I was at the Safari Club and was talking to Preston Kavner. The Kavner and Julian is the name of the outfitter. And I did quite a bit of research on where to go. And because to me, I know so many bow hunters that go multiple times. And, those brown bears, it's just not something that you're just going to go out there and knock one over with a bow every time you go.
Yeah.
So, and they're fairly expensive too. So one of my goals was I wanted to go somewhere where I had the best opportunity to get one on the first trip, number one, but I also wanted to go where I had an opportunity to get, the real giants, because they do vary, in size depending on where you're at. So Preston was way out on the peninsula, further out than Kodiak even. And matter of fact, the current world record was actually killed there, or very, very close to there in 2018. So that's what I did. The other part, he actually had a boat-based camp. So we were able to basically hunt out of boats, and we were traveling like miles and miles of beach. So we were just watching that beach line, and that's where those bears were coming down. They were breeding right then too. So you see a lot of multiples and that kind of thing. And of course, most of the groceries are on the ocean line. So it couldn't have went any better. We probably saw 30 bears. And the very opening morning, we had seen a couple of bears that had kind of got off the beach and went up the hill, and we're going to go around and just kind of come back and check to see if they come back later. And I'm going along, and I see this thing on the beach, and it's literally 120 yards away, maybe, kind of brown looking, and I'm looking at it through my binoculars, and Preston's beside me. He's not saying nothing, so I'm thinking, well, God, it must be driftwood or something. And we keep going. Pretty quick, I can see like a tail, and pretty quick, I can see freaking ears. And I said, Preston, is that a bear? And he looked. He said, oh my God! He said, then he was asleep on a sea lion. At the time, we actually thought it was a whale, but we could tell it was something that had washed up on the beach. But he was covering this whole thing. At the time, it looked like a piece of white driftwood, and he was sound asleep. And so there's a kind of a jet of lamb that came out, and he's like this, and all we had to do is go around, and the ocean went back behind. So it's a perfect spot. You couldn't have made a better place to have a bear at. Anyway, we go around, and it probably didn't take us 10 minutes to pop up on top right above him. And the problem was that the wind got squirrely on us on the way up, and I was a little worried, but it was my first ever stalk on a brown bear ever. And but we popped up, and he caught our wind and took off. There was a red fox that was still there on it, but he took off on us. But at that point, we kind of we had something that we knew he was going to be on, so we had a place to look.
Right.
And and so he kind of became the focus of our hunt. We went back the next day, and we're headed around to him, and it was just getting daylight, and we spotted another big giant bear over on this cove. So we decided to take a stalk on him as well. So we beached the boat, jumped out of the boat, and this bear's coming around this big cove. And he's half mile away, but you can see him just like nothing, they're giant.
Yeah.
And he's covering ground. He's just walking, but
they're 10 yards of stride, it seems like.
Exactly.
When they're doing that, it just seems like they're covering ground.
I'll bet in the span of no more than 5 or 10 minutes, he covered half mile.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, he wasn't in a hurry. He was just going along, but he's just walking. And we headed into him, and he kind of went off the beach up in this kind of a corner. We thought he was going to go up the hill, so we haul ass up there, and just so we peek over, the bear standing there at 35 yards straight at us. And then this was a giant, just dark colored boar. Later Preston told me that he'd probably go number 3, if not bigger, of all time. He figured it was a 29-inch head at least. And anyway, so the bear's standing there facing us, and I've been in this situation I don't know how many times with black bears wearing hex. And So invariably with black bears, if you're in that situation, they're not going to spin and run. They're going to just kind of, they may not come in, they may leave, but it's going to be fairly slow. So I'm waiting for him to turn broadside. And like I said, he's 35 yards each shot. And, but instead of doing that, he just whirls and runs. And so I'm thinking, God, it really did surprise me because, like I said, it just wasn't typical with what I see with bears wearing hex. And so I turned around and we're going back, and I noticed that Preston didn't have a hex face mask on. And so I asked him, I said, hey, Preston, you got your hex on? And he's kind of, a little embarrassed. He said, no, I didn't actually put it on this morning. I forgot. I gave him all the base layers and stuff. And anyway, I'm convinced that one cost us a bear. I really am. Yeah. But anyway, we got back in the boat. We went over towards where the sea lion carcass was, and we got there just a little bit too late, and that big bear had already started up the hill. But they had a draw, so we were able to make a draw, go up this draw, and he kind of came around, and we did get 50 yards of him, but the wind was kind of goofy then as well, and so I just didn't get a shot. He just didn't stop long enough to get a shot, and he took off. And then he went nocturnal for the next 5 days. So anybody that thinks that they're dumb, they're not dumb in any way, shape, or form. But, we kept hunting. It was just phenomenal. We saw bears every single day. I had another one that was almost as good as him that I just didn't quite get a shot at. And then finally on the 5th day, he went nocturnal. And the 4th day, we actually saw where he'd been back in to the sea lion. And we figured he was there in the day. So I told Press, I said, look, we got to get in this boat. And we got to go straight there. No looking at nothing else. And so we left about an hour before daylight. And we hit the beach. It was barely light enough to see when we hit the beach. And then we got to have the wind right and we worked up there and came up above him. And sure enough, there he was. And 16 yards broadside. There was 3 of us right on top of it, right on the skyline. He just looks up at us and just kind of, took a little step. I had to kind of reposition around the rock. But heck, he wasn't even looking at us when they were at him at 16 yards. So you just can't write it any better. It was just phenomenal experience. And he's a giant bear. He's been a crockett, 27-inch head, 27 and 1/8-inch head. So blonde color too. So that's a little bit different. A lot of those big boars are real dark, but this was real light blonde. So anyway, he'll be sitting right here in my trophy room here before too long. Hopefully a couple more weeks. He's almost done. He's just
oh my gosh.
Now. Yeah.
Dang, you were on the speed plan. Well, probably with less people traveling last year too. You might have worked your way up in the
maybe.
ranks.
I've got a pretty good relationship with my taxidermist. I use a guy out of Caldwell, Idaho. That's Imperial Taxidermy, and all the stuff that's in this room, pretty much he's done. So, I get pretty good treatment from Nathan over there, no doubt. So,
yeah, the big. Honestly, Grizz and coastal bears are kind of at the top, really at the top of thrill factor for me. Mm-hmm. I've probably got, I didn't have too long into the coastal bear. I got really lucky because I realized how lucky I was because when my hunt happened, when we landed in that small town, there was actually like signs up that said, no salmon run, fishing closed, which is not what you want to hear. Like, not at all. Yeah. That's just like, oh no. And so the guide said, that was the year of the big tsunami over in Asia. So there was actually a lot of like wash up of just random stuff on the shore. But because of all that disruption, the salmon run did not happen in this part of the peninsula. So it really changed the dynamic of that hunt entirely because they're just, there was no run, so everything is much lighter. The size was there, the length and everything was there. It just wasn't as filled out. The hides were still really good, but every bear you saw, the only ones that were stationary were ones that were really feeding on kelp. As the tide pushed out, they were really just shoveling that, that shoreline and just digging for that kelp. And sometimes they'll start digging and they'll kind of get a little pit and then they'll lay in that. Yeah. And then all the kelp's kind of around them and they're just kind of raking it in and chowing down. And I remember staring, because you're looking through a spotting scope. I've got something in my Leupold at like 1.5 miles, and you're trying to determine, is that a log or is it a bear that literally is gorging itself without having to waste any energy and move around, which it actually is what was happening quite a bit. And so we actually saw a bear, but he was following a tributary, and you could tell that he was walking right above the tributary and he was looking down in it for fish. And that tributary wound around and then eventually dumped into the sea. And it looked like he had about another 1.5 miles or 2 miles if he stayed on that before he would get to the shore. So I literally just looked at him and said, let's go, and just started running and just ran down to the beach and then started heading up the beach. And we were pretty blind because there's that break wall, which has a ton of debris and stuff like that on there. And you really have to be on top of that to be able to see those little tributaries that kind of feed in. So we kind of just had a mark of where he was. We ranged it from where we were glassing. And so I was just running down the beach and then turning around and ranging back up to that hill, just trying to get within 100 or 200 yards of where I thought he was so that we could peer over. And we peered over the first time and he had already covered more ground than us, even with me like daddy long leg hauling butt. He had already passed. So I just kind of, before the other guys even were able to get up, I just kind of pointed like, get back down and go. And so went back down and just started running again. And I knew I needed to get past him because there wasn't fish in there to hold him. I knew he was just going to walk until he realized there were no fish. And then he was going to do what they were all doing, which was go back up into the mountains, Yeah. So, we got down and just hauled butt, and I kind of went up and looked over, and I could see he was like about 40 or 50 yards behind us, just coming. And so we actually got up on this break wall right where there was a big deadfall. And so we were able to kind of be right there, and he was 40 yards honestly, he was kind of like just digging around, like, I don't know, on something that was just in the mud on that, and was able to, honestly, it happened so fast. My first shot, I didn't really know it had hit him as good as it did. I thought I was a little bit low, but once we got up to him, we're like, no, this was money. But it was pretty freaking cool. And then Darren had a tag too, and then another 7 days went by without any action. He ended up having to go back a year later. And then on top of that, like once I got that coastal, I really keyed in on the mountain grizz or the inland in BC. And I think in total I had like 60 or 70 days on that through multiple hunts, so
they're not easy.
Yeah, and they're just so few and far between too. And it's funny, like if you see one, which is, if you're there for 20 days, like most guides in BC or whatever, if they're doing black bear hunts, if they're out 2 weeks, they'll see a grizz, but they're not going to see a grizz every day they go out. The grizz just have big coverage, big mileage that they cover. But what I will say is, if you see one, you're not going to like see them the next day too. So sometimes you might see one and just be like, there's one. And by the time you try to get there, they're gone. So it took several trips for for that one.
That's the challenge of bow hunting. I mean, there's a lot of guys that go after them with guns and don't get them for years and years. It really is. And so you can imagine, you might be out there for 10 days or 20, however long, and you see one target animal that you can shoot in that amount of time. That particular animal unless he's on something to eat, he's moving all the time.
Yeah.
And they can cover so much ground. This really is a challenge that probably unmatched really in bow hunting. I mean, there's some other tough stuff. There's sheep and things like that, but probably those, especially the inland grizzly, are, they're here 1 second and gone, and you may never see another one. And that's what makes it so tough as a bow hunter. One of the reasons why I picked the place that I went for brown bear, because I've talked to a lot of brown bear guys that have the same exact experience with them. And, it's with archery, it's really good if you can have multiple encounters. I mean, it really is, because, heck, we're trying to kill them with a sharp stick and they don't want to die, but that's what makes it fun. It really is. It's all part of it.
And it seems like it's always a coin toss of, like, with a grizz or a brown bear or a grizz, it's a coin toss. Their demeanor, they're either like totally unafraid and they're coming, or they're like, I don't want any part of that. I'm not going to risk it. Survival instinct takes over, and they just, even though they're bigger and bolder, they're also smart, and they flee. They take the smart way out and they flee.
Even the one that I killed that day before, when we made that stalk up that draw, when the wind switched and he got our wind. Instead of turning and running or doing anything else like that, he just kind of gives us a big bluff charge, just woof, woof, woof down the hill, and it wasn't enough to shoot at. You could see him clearly, but it was all through that alder, and that alder's just freaking doing this stuff. And then he turned and then took off after that. But it wasn't the kind of experience that you're used to seeing with anything else when it went. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you the one thing that's a little bit, I shouldn't say. It is a bit sketchy. Is I remember, like, bear hunting with Sharon and Harry with Hex. You need to expect them to, like, get in the tree with you, because they know you're there, but they don't recognize what you are. So then they're honestly more inquisitive. Yeah. But in saying that, whenever I've hunted over bait, which I do believe that there's a good time for that. And I think, I think there's areas where bear hunting needs to happen. Like, it definitely needs to happen. There's
get them out of the way in a lot of places, but
it's insane how many that you can see, like, cause you drive around, you don't see bears, it's not like you really see them, but when you're in there and there's like 15 different ones coming in, and, you're talking, this piece of bush that you're in is, 2 miles square. Well, that's a serious density. Oh, yeah. But the big boars, they just, they skirt it, they scent check it, they use all their senses, and they know that they can come in the pitch black and they're fine. Yeah. So to get a really big boar over bait is, it's not a guarantee. It takes luck, takes luck, because they roam, they cover a lot of ground, definitely takes luck. But, it also takes kind of being unknown, you need them to think that nobody's there, and then they're way more likely to stroll in, which, Sharon has the biggest black bear, I think, in the house still. And that sucker, he was very, very, very crafty. And I think he was like looking our direction, like he knew I'm hearing something that's up in that area, but you can tell when things look through you and they're not like looking right at you. They're just kind of like, wait, where did I hear that? It almost is like they're looking in the dark, where they're not able to like fixate on you. And that's when something like that's working, for sure.
Well, there's some interesting things with bears, and it really came out in a big study in 2016. We came out with Hex. Well, you and I started using it even before we came out with it. Because we had one of the very first old ones, but we actually, came out with it in 2010. But in 2016, there was a big study about electroreception as far as mammals go. Birds, it's very well proven that birds see electrical fields visually, and that's what Hex is all about. We block those fields. So anytime there's a movement, it takes a muscle to make that movement happen, and that muscle actually has an electrical current that causes it to work. So that current travels outside your body. Birds see it visually, and that's why we're shooting these turkeys out in the chairs and getting away with full draw and all that stuff. And we've done it with every species all across the country. Matter of fact, I had to chuckle. I heard a podcast out of some guys out in the Midwest here a couple of weeks ago, and they were all about how Hex doesn't work, and none of them had ever tried it, and they were citing old science. So I actually got to write them a little email and kind of backed up a little bit. But anyway, it's just funny how the skeptics work. But again, those fields are visual to birds because they have a molecule called cryptochrome. It's highly electrically conductive. It's in the eye, and they know that that's how they're seeing that. That's how they navigate. That's how they see the electrical field of the earth. And it's also how they tell living movement from non-living movement. Well, lo and behold, there's a couple other species that also have cryptochrome within their eyes, and bears are one of them. Bears, canines, there's 4 or 5 other species that they know now. And honestly, it's not a surprise to us at all. Bears, are bears and dogs and coyotes and everything like that are also very susceptible. We see big differences with them. Again, they found that molecule cryptochrome in their eye. So we know how they're actually being able to pick up what we're doing. And that's how they tell living beings from non-living beings. So you take that electrical field away, which is what Hex does, it causes them to not see you as living any longer. And you see that with bears all the time. Birds, bears, coyotes. It's one of the reasons why the special forces are still using Hex as far as what they tell us is they're getting between 30 and 90 seconds more time before a dog will alert when they're going in on covert situations. So again, it's just kind of science is kind of catching up with us a little bit, which is kind of a cool feeling, honestly. When we launched this, we were the craziest guys in the whole country, and but we'd already used it. I personally had used it enough that I could say, it works.
Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure that I've had it since the very first episode of Nock On, because our first show that we filmed was I think we were filming in 2009, 2010. We would have, had our first air shows, and I'm sure I had some whites. I think it was white.
That original white stuff we came out, the stuff that we actually sent out, there's some stuff that predates that as well that we were just testing on our own with. But I think the very first stuff that you had with the white, it was actually a Hex fabric that we didn't even have it dyed yet. And we sent that to you, and that would have been 2009. So because we launched the company in 2010. So
yeah, and I tell people, it's one of those deals where I can't, give them something where I'm like, I 100% know it works every time. But what I can tell people is I have a lot more success than people that don't wear it.
Yeah.
I can tell you that right now. The simple fact of the matter is I hunt with a lot of the same friends, and I talk to a lot of the same friends. And when it comes to tags in hand and tags notched, I've been leading the pack for quite a while, and Hex is one thing that, people, you're going to see me with it all the time, and that's just how it is. And so I had my early season elk hunt was really cool. I've wanted to shoot a bull in velvet for a while, and last year was actually the year to do it. Just because the way Utah's seasons work, I think it's has to do with whatever Saturday of the year. And so it during every 7 years, it becomes very early. And so just that extra 2 or 3 days, as much as it sounds like it's ridiculous, went like, I've been there the day before season scouting, and 100% of the bulls are in velvet. And then the next morning, all of a sudden a couple bulls are raking. And then by that evening, 50% of the bulls anywhere you find are raked. And then you have like 3 or 4 days, unless you find a lone bull, which I found a lone bull that was clearly an old bull that didn't want anybody around him, like nobody. And I was actually mule deer hunting, and I got in really close to a muley, and I was almost there too long. And he honestly had no idea. I don't know why I haven't played this footage, but he came up and he started feeding, and like I was trying to get to one little tree or something, and I was in a wide open, and I could just see his back, and he's in all that I don't know what kind of buck brush that stuff is in the Wasatch there, but you know what I'm talking about.
It's kind of like an oak brush, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, and so I could see his back, and I'm literally maneuvering, trying to stay quiet, and then I'm kind of intercepting, and then all of a sudden he does what big deer do. He stops, decides to just come straight at me, and I go down to one knee with like my arrow knocked and pointing forward, and he just head down, just feeding, and then just gets like real close and just kind of like looks up like this, and he's just sitting there looking at me. I'm not small. You know, you and I both are not.
Yeah, we don't hide very well.
yeah, we're not like blending in. So he just sat there and like looked at me like, "What the heck are you?" And we sat there for so long, to where he was kind of just like, "I'm gonna sit here till someone moves first." And so I'm just like, and sometimes you can, on a muley, sometimes you can get back, and they're just, and they kind of go from like staring at you to going, huh? And then you can pump them in the chest, which I've done. But this guy, as soon as I like pulled back, it was too much. And when I pulled back, I had a guy right over my shoulder with a big lens.
Yeah, that don't help.
Yeah, I actually think I was more worried about the lens flare, which is a big problem with cameras. Lens flare, especially when you're out in the open like that. But then, like, as I came back from that, I came around, and we had a spotter on the spotter was probably 2 miles away. And when I got back, he's like, "You wouldn't believe the bull I saw." And so he had phone scoped it, and I just said, "Holy crap, dude, I would kill that bull." And he said, "Honestly, I know you're here for muleys, but you've got an elk tag for September. You might want to use it." So we kind of debated, and then I said, "Well, let's see if we can find him again tomorrow morning," which we did. We found him, and I was in the same spot, hoping to kind of see that muley again. But it, in high country, it gets really hard, because you can go 100 yards and there's a new whoop-de-doo, and there can be, just stuff in there. So when I came out, and then drove around and met my spotter, he's like, "I found your bull." And he said, "You won't believe it, but," he goes, "he's bedded in a finger that he's totally killable." And it was, if you can picture like a mountain face, there's a lot of that buckbrush and all that stuff, and slate and everything. But there was one finger of timber that was about, I would say 80 yards wide, but maybe a mile long or so. But he was 3/4 of the way to the top. He came in, and it was sparse enough to where if he had moved high or low, a spotter could definitely see.
Right.
So we kind of had an idea. So
pretty close where he was at.
Yeah. And that night the wind was good. We flanked around, left the spotter from a few miles away, just looking, and then went up to the top and was just kind of sitting there waiting. And I was there early. I kind of felt like I needed to be there early to kind of see what the wind was really doing. And I kind of felt like I might have to play on the back side of that face because of the wind, and then like peek up, just kind of keep coming up and peeking over and glass this side of that finger. And then I'd have to come back down, flank around, glass down this side. And meanwhile, I had a spotter set up looking at the spotter, and, he's giving me the signal like he's out, he's out. He's out. So we ended up stalking in, and I had Dallas Haymeyer with me. We stalked in our socks, went down and got, I think it was like 33 yards from this bull, and he was right around this corner. There was like some scrubby stuff there, but I could see almost all of them. And he was feeding, but he was very attentive. He'd pick his head up. He'd be looking. His ears were just like solid as a rock. And one of the things that stood, and then he fed on the edge for a second. Then he turned back in, and he was staying about 10 yards inside of the thick stuff. And because I was on the edge, now he's 20 yards from me where a big tree had fallen over, and I can see his eyeballs and his rack. And one of those those jack squirrels came down, and he kind of like looked at me, and I was all just, I was masked up and everything. And I'm thinking, don't you bark, because a squirrel had barked when he was out feeding, and he like hopped in, and then he was like on alert for like 20 minutes. And again, this bull is inside of 30 yards, but just in very, very thick cover. And I'm pinned kind of, I'm standing next to a small little pine tree that is 5 or 10 yards from the thick cover. And I'm sitting there looking at that squirrel like, this squirrel will ruin this hunt. If this squirrel starts barking, which they do if they know what you are.
Oh, 100% of the time, except for I know how this is going to end. But go ahead.
Yeah, but no, I like even on that hunt, if someone said, well, did your hex work? I don't know if it worked on the bull, but I can tell you for sure that squirrel did not bust me. And those freaking little squirrels, they chirp and bark, and and they sit there doing it for a long time, and they're trying to tell everybody, hey, there's a dude over here.
Yeah, exactly what they're doing.
And the fact that thing kind of came up and looked at me a few times and didn't know what I was and couldn't figure that part out, he did not alert the bull. And so the bull just kept his head down, feeding along the backside of this big blowdown. And then he came out. He honestly came out in what should have been a perfect shot. And I ranged him. And then I set my sight, and I knew he was so relaxed. I ranged him felt like 25 times to just make sure that I wasn't like shaking and getting the wrong read. Yeah. And he was kind of quartering hard. So I thought he's just going to turn broadside. I actually thought he was going to turn and come up within 10 yards. But then it got to the point where I knew he went from being really close to then being 31, 32, 33, 35. And so I'm like, now's my shot. And when I made my shot, this is how spooky that bull was. When I made my shot, he dropped like maybe 10 inches or so at a mid 30-yard shot. He went from me like being, because that's the nice thing about a camera, you can pause it and say, this is where I want to shoot, and then you can go frame. And he literally like did the duck and turn, and as he like they pick their legs up, so as he like picked his back quarter up, that quarter came forward right in front of that back rib, so my arrow kind of went in a lot further back than what you would think looking at it, but it actually it it actually just went all the way through everything. It clipped that back artery that was like under the spine. And then it also hit it dead centered the liver. So, it didn't look the best when he went running off. I was like, dang, how did I hit that? But playing it back, I kind of realized what happened, but for him to react that much at my bow, that is, he
was on it.
Yeah, he was on it. So if anything would, like, if that squirrel would have started chirping, he might not have busted out of there, but he would not have stayed on that feeding path. He would have probably just turned, stayed in the thick stuff, and just headed down towards the river, towards the river in the bottom of that draw.
Those squirrels have messed up more hunts for more hunters than just about anything out there. And interesting enough, it's one of the things that we hear, when people first get hacks, and it's like, well, I didn't really maybe have some deer, but God, I noticed the squirrels were quiet. And I mean, it's universal just about. I honestly couldn't tell you the last time I had a squirrel chirping at me unless I was, just crashing around and stuff and making a bow racket. But if you're sneaking around, and actually hunting, I couldn't even tell you last time I had a squirrel chirp at me. Yeah. And it's cool. I mean, I was hunting in Oklahoma in December, and I had one of those great big red squirrels. I mean, we don't have them out west, but they're giant, it look like a cat up there. Yeah. So, and I hear something in the tree above me, and I'm looking, and I have my tacticam on my hat, and I look up and I see this freaking giant squirrel. He's coming down I was sitting just backed up against an oak tree, just kind of waiting for some deer to come in. And anyway, he's coming down. I mean, I'm like this. I'm thinking, man, I'm getting the coolest footage ever with my hat cam, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, but he's not 2 feet from me, right, at the most, and he's just looking at me. I go, God, this one's gonna bark probably, Yeah. But he never did. He just turned. He knew something was there. He knew it wasn't right, but it wasn't enough to bark at. Then I get back and I'm going through my footage. I'm thinking, guess this will be the coolest, like right in your face, squirrel footage. And the way the camera angle was, all you can see is his tail, sticking out. But I mean, he was literally. I mean, he wasn't 2 feet above me, and he kept messing around there for probably 30 minutes. Before he finally went on. But there again, if he would have, did what squirrels normally do, I mean, it would have been, because they're the alarm system of the woods. That's what they are. So. Oh yeah. But, when you were telling me about a squirrel, like I said, you've never told me that story, but I already knew how it was going to end.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the small things that I think a hunter that doesn't have experience just probably, it's just something you're going to take for granted. But
it's one of those things. If you don't hear it, if you hear the squirrels chirping at you and all that kind of stuff, well, that's, man, I'm pissed off now. If you don't hear it, you're not pissed off, and you don't think about it. A lot of people, but if you think about it when you're wearing hacks, I mean, the woods are just a lot calmer. They just really are. And like I said, it's been this one's been a fun ride. I've done a lot of things in the archery industry, but this one's been probably the funnest, honestly, because we had so many people that were so skeptical when we started it, and I mean, when Scott and I, we started this thing, and he and I were both, pretty veterans in the archery industry, and we had a lot of connections, and we knew everybody. And I'm thinking, well, in my mind, I've never lied to these guys before. Why would I start now? Because I mean, all the time that we owned Winner's Choice back prior to 2012, when it was still a good string company, we had a great following and all that. And, it's like, I think Scott and I were both a little taken back about the skepticism, even with people that have known us forever. But the cool thing is we had enough experience that we knew it was going to work. And it's just kind of like back in the Winner's Choice days. When we launched Winner's Choice, we were the most expensive string company out there, and by a lot, not by a little, by a lot. And I mean, we had dealers laugh at us when they looked at our pricing, and we gave them a free set of strings, and that's how Winner's Choice got started, the same kind of way. So we gave away quite a few hexes at the beginning and that kind of thing too. But the thing is, we knew what they were going to see. I mean, we had full confidence in what we had, and lo and behold, 12 years later, here we are.
Well, I remember Ulmer, and I don't know if it was the two of us together, but I remember him telling a story about, I think I was telling him about mule deer hunting in canola, which I normally, COVID's changed that the last 2 years, but normally I'm stalking mule deer in canola at the end of August. Like that's just, that's how it happens, and it's going to happen again. And when you're in canola, the canola is as high as the deer's back. When they're, when their head's up, you can see their whole head and their whole rack. So the hardest thing about hunting mule deer in canola is being able to get close enough to where you can get an arrow through it, and get a clear shot. And sometimes you got to wait for them to just kind of get in one of the rows where the spray truck is like, the wheels have matted it down. And as soon as they cross one of those, you got like a shot, but you're having to stay, uncomfortably close for a long period of time. And there's just times where I was kind of telling Randy, like, what do you do when you're sitting on a mule deer that long? And he just made the comment on the big deer, and this was pre 2010 or whatever. This was, it was probably like, after the ESPN games and stuff like that. It had to have been like 2007, 8, because I know, Darren and I were doing Double D at the time. But he just said, if it's a big mature deer, I don't get like, if I get too close, even if the wind's right, even if everything's right, it's just a matter of time before you can tell their demeanor changes and they know something isn't right. And so he just said, if I'm not too close to them, then I can avoid that. And I think that conversation is really what kind of spurred, the idea of what is the sixth sense, because we actually referred to it as a sixth sense. That's in that conversation, Randy said, the big ones have a sixth sense. I think that's exactly what he said. And he's like, and I don't, I stay back enough to where I can strike or I can close the distance once they're up and they're occupied. But if they're just sitting there and all their senses are bedded and trying to stay alive, I don't want to be in that scenario. And so he just said that the sixth sense is what'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same conversation. It might have been spurred off of that one, or one or the others. It's about the same time frame. This would have been in 2009 when we were just playing with hacks. We hadn't launched it yet. The patents were issued and all that, but it was kind of in the final stages. And I was at the HEA show, and of course, Randy was one of our guys with Winner's Choice, and we had the Winner's Choice booth there. And we were talking about mule deer, and actually, I was explaining kind of the quote unquote birth of hacks, or the idea was actually with a mule deer in Wyoming. And it was super steep country. This buck was 190 inches typical. If he was anything, he was giant deer, old giant deer. And I mean, I'm coming on him. I have probably a 25 or 30 mile an hour wind in my face coming straight at me. I mean, it's all making noise. It's doing everything. It's perfect stalking condition, right? So I'm coming across this buck. He's 30 yards and he's laying in his bed and he's just calm as could be. And then I made one little move out. He's still calm. I get to full draw and I about hit full draw and he comes up. He jumps straight up and it was so steep he probably went down 10, 15 feet straight down. Well, where he lit, I didn't have a shot. But the important thing was that he wasn't looking at me. He was looking around. He was looking all around like this. And he didn't know. He knew something was there. He had no idea what. Yeah. And, that was kind of what started the whole conversation. We've all seen it as hunters. I mean, it's not like that's the first time that's ever happened. Now it happens all the time. But it kind of started that conversation and kind of got me and a couple other people I was working with at the time kind of interested in what could be causing that, right? And so I was explaining that to Randy at the HEA, and he's the one who told me, he said, I don't get inside of 40 yards. He said, if you're inside of 40 yards on a bedded mule deer, he's going to know you're there pretty soon. And he's not going to stand up and look at you. Those big ones do not stand up and look at you. They take out of there 90 miles an hour. And so, and of course, like Randy's one of my personal archery heroes anyway. He just is. And certainly with mule deer, there's not a more expert on the planet than Randy. I mean, he's killed more big mule deer than Winner. So, it's when Randy says something, you better listen. But it all kind of made sense. And one thing about it, there's really, well, to me, there's no doubt at all that, because I've stalked into super close range and stayed tight with them for, hours. I was after a mule deer in Nevada, 2016. This deer was 220 to 230 easy, big, non-typical, just a giant buck. Found him the first day of season, luckily, on public ground. I hunted him for 3 weeks, that deer, no other deer for 3 weeks. I actually had a stalk on him about the second day. I tried to stalk. He was with these 7 other bucks, and I made the mistake of trying to stalk the whole group. Well, I got in close enough to him, and I could see him. He was 50 yards bedded, and I had to wait for him to stand up. What I didn't know is that there was another one about 10 yards to my left. And we stood there for, standing up, and we had a hard wind, and then all of a sudden the wind just dies. And those thermals switched a little bit, and that buck was right beside me that I had no idea was there. Of course, he just wins this and jumps up and blew the whole deal up. And so I didn't stalk that buck again for 3 weeks. I finally got him by himself, and I got in above him. He was there was a rock just about as big as he was. I was 20 yards on the upper side of that rock. All he had to do is stand up and walk, take a step either way, and he was dead. And I was pulled up against the rim in the shade of this rim with the wind in my face. Everything was beautiful. And it was, if I remember right, it was like 5.5 or 6 hours. He should have already stood up and changed beds 15 times, Yeah. And the way it worked out, there was some guys out of Utah that were actually kind of honing in on, because I've been hunting basically the same freaking place every day for 3 weeks. So anyway, they'd taken up and they went up on top of the ridge. Well, they jumped all his buddies off top of the ridge, and those bucks came right down by me, and I could have shot any one of them at 10 feet. But they were running, and of course when he jumps up, he runs. He actually did stop it. He was about 40. I didn't get a chance to range him. He was probably 40, 42 yards. I pulled back and I shot, and there was a rock that was sticking out right beside me, and my arrow caught that rock right out of my bow, like a foot out of my bow. But it was heartbreaking. It really was. But I guess the moral of the story is there was no problem. There's no way you could have did that on that buck. No way without it. I don't believe, because I've been that close to bucks I don't know how many times, and they just know you're there, like Randy says, So
it's funny. I actually didn't really want this to be like a Hex podcast commercial. It
doesn't have to be.
We kind of went down this storytelling thing just because it is cool. You and I have these stories, but one of the things that I really like is I know last year you guys used one of the hunts that I did in Alberta where I was really close, and this buck was bedded, and it was so thick. All I could see was like the tips of his G2s, his G2 forks. He was that deep in there, and I kept just like, the wind was strong, so I kept just edging forward, and I was so close that I could see his eyeballs through the canola. I could like see his eye. And I knew, I'm like, okay, you cannot go any further. And I knew I cannot pull my bow until his butt comes up. And then, during that movement, I could just rip back. And it was pretty much a snapshot. Just because once he did go to get up and I drew my bow back, which I had held at full draw. There's a few times where he was itching and I thought like he's going to get up, and I was able to get my bow drawn really slow and kind of bring it up. And I was just waiting. And then finally I had to like let it down. And I really feel like, the fabric itself, there is nothing, well, the Sitka, core lightweight is actually very slick, and it's slick for a reason, so that the mid layers and outer layers can slide on it, so it doesn't bind up. It's made to be sheeny like that. But that stuff is so awesome for navigating through like wheat or that canola, or I was down in my undies again in Colorado, into my hex base, just because in that CRP, it was so intertwined that you kind of had to like put your leg into it and kind of just like wiggle your leg and like almost like combing hair that was really knotted, try to just get it to come apart, and then you could slide it forward. So I was in my undies for both those for like a long time, and just right close, like 100% close enough for top pin, like the whole time. And yeah, it's one of those deals where I know that a lot of things have to be right, and there's certain things that the more you hunt, the more you realize things happen that you can't explain. And normally that's a negative, like that's on the negative side. Like, why did they blow out of here or whatever? But there's also times where it's like, I shouldn't have been able to get away with this.
Yeah.
You know, I shouldn't have been able to get away with that. So those are the moments for me that make it worthwhile. And in the end, you know, it's less money than a dozen arrows. You know?
Yeah. Well,
truthfully, it's less than a dozen arrows. And I mean, if someone asks you, you know, if someone said, if you pay for, well, people do it, you know, for us, they do it every day. If you buy match grade, look how much more you pay for a match grade arrow, because they're inside of 1,000th. So they give you 1 to 2 thousandths better straightness opportunity. And you're paying that much for 1 or 2 thousandths of a better chance to be lethal. So it's like the math is the same. The math is the same.
For us, we, you know, being a bow hunter lifelong, it's been my passion forever. And there's a couple of things that, you know, hex does what it does. But if you've got something that makes too much noise, you know, because as I said, they've got a lot more than just the sixth sense we talk about, obviously.
Yeah, there's
got all the
5
senses
others
we always knew about, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, and you know, being noisy is one of the big ones. And so, you know, all of our fabrics, you know, I'm really anal about making sure that they're going to be quiet. They're going to do, you know, because, you know, it doesn't do us any good as a company to have a technology that works if it's loud, because guess what? You're going to get busted. You're not going to know why. It's going to be, you know, just going to get busted. So the whole idea is to make something that, number one, doesn't have a downside, that's super comfortable and super quiet and everything else. Plus it has, you know, has the technology. So, you know, that's really what we're all about. Again, it's just me being if I won't hunt in it, then we don't make it. You know, and you know, Scott's in there too. I mean, he's the same way. Him and I go back and forth on all this stuff. And like I said, if it's too noisy to hunt in, it's not going to be a hex gear. Just not. So anyway, the hex commercial, I guess, is probably. But hey, let's talk about archery a little bit. I kind of like that still too.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, it's funny when people underestimate their noise and how important that is as a bow hunter. Because I know there's a lot of people that are brand new bow hunters that are listening, and so here's how I relate it. You know, if I'm in my house, I'm on my couch, we're watching TV, like it's a normal night. I'm there, you know, my lady's over there, my friends who are my dogs are there. And if all of a sudden, like the wind picks up, my furniture on my deck is pretty light. But if all of a sudden I hear like, zzz, boom, everybody is like, what was that little thump noise? Because that
it's not natural.
Yeah, even though it's really not, it's not like it was a tornado siren, but everybody's like, wait a minute, is someone coming in? Is someone downstairs? You know, is someone hiding in the closet upstairs?
Think if you were living your life with somebody trying to shoot you all the time.
Yeah. So multiply that. You're on a hit list every day of your life by, you know, either weapon or wildlife. And so,
and you've got ears that work like sonar dishes, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, noise is a big deal. Well, and so sound. I mean, you know, that's what makes it so much fun. If it was easy, it wouldn't be that much fun. It really wouldn't.
Yeah. So. Well, this year I got my nose fixed. I I guess it's been about a month or maybe a little bit more. And I've struggled with breathing through my nose my whole life. And from like the test that I had like 30% at best. So I got my nose done, which is a game changer, 100%. If you're even thinking about it, if you struggle with allergies, if you struggle with, like, I had a deviated septum, mine was like bent all over, and then I had oversized, I don't know what, I call them sinus ducts. I don't know. It was a very long, like, doctor-like procedure that I had. So I did that. I also got my eyes checked because last year, this exact time last year, I remember shooting tack in Texas. All was good. I remember going to shoot in the backyard with Rogan and Peter Attia like 2 days after tack, and I could not see my indicator needle. And I could not, like, I'm just like, I was like rubbing my eyes, and I'm like, there's just something in the air. But I've just got like crud. Maybe I didn't sleep that good. I felt like I had sleep in my eyes. So, but anyway, I went and got my eyes checked right before my nose, got my eyes checked. And during my nose appointment, I literally left the nose doctor and went right to the ear doctor. Technically they're the same, but then once he confirmed, yes, you definitely have hearing loss, and I always called it tinnitus, but I guess it's tinnitus. In my left, I have ringing all the time. So I got my ears checked, and I got the best hearing aids I could get. And honestly, all my senses are like freaking on point right now. But what I'll say is, when I got those hearing aids in, and like I walked outside, because I was on carpet in the doctor's office, and it snows a lot, so or it's icy in Iowa, so there's like gravel outside of like every door in the wintertime. So I stepped out of that door and like could hear.
Scared yourself, didn't you?
I was just like, oh my God, am I loud? So I was actually like trying to stealth stalk to my car to see how quiet it was. And I remember texting the ear lady, and I said, how true are these to like what everything else is hearing? And she's like, well, right now you're at 85%. So I was just sitting there thinking, like, the reason maybe I've always felt like I was the quietest sucker to ever be on 2 feet, it's probably because I was deaf.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot. A lot of what you're relaying is, how old are you now? 42,
45.
43? 45. Yeah. Okay. 40. When I was 42, I started realizing that I couldn't see anymore. And it took me a long time to admit it. But I'd be doing this because, I can see far away pretty well, but I can't see up close. Yeah. And then as I got closer to 50, then the far away stuff got a little bit fuzzy too. And of course, I always refer to it as my misfit youth. I spent a lot of time listening to loud music and shooting big pistols without hearing protection.
I still do
wasn't
that.
Wasn't smartest tool in the shed back then. But anyway, so that ringing in your ears, I have it all the time. So I'm like, I've got a rather expensive pair of hearing aids, but they're worth it.
Yeah.
But first time I put them in, it scared me. It really did. It's like, holy crap. I mean, it's just, but mine's got it to where now I can turn them up. Like if I'm hunting or something, I turn them up, and it drives me crazy to walk, because I'm walking as quiet as I could possibly walk, and it still sounds loud, you know. But the eye thing, and this is something that matter of fact, these are my shooting glasses. I was actually shooting a little earlier, but these in particular has been such a game changer for me, because I have my sight will actually starburst. So actually, I put them on here again. But so what happens is I will get a starburst like my sight. And it used to be crystal clear. I could aim and, you can see the target or whatever, and your pin was crystal clear, in it and everything. Well, it's not anymore. Now it's like instead of being a little dot, it's like a big.
It's like those lights behind you. I'm actually, I'm starting to get like that right now, truthfully.
Yeah, it is. And so I got, of course I've been wearing glasses, but the problem with regular glasses is that when I anchor, I've got to shoot right off the bridge of my nose.
Yeah.
And, you've got something there and you just can't see it. So what happens? You have to try to change your anchor point. Well, that's something I've been doing since I was, 6.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to change. So I actually got a buddy of mine named Chuck Cooley. He's not an optometrist. He's not an optometrist. He's an optician. Because I actually called him that the other day and he had to correct me. But he has, he's a top level archer, has been for years and years.
I love Chuck. He's awesome.
Way back. Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck Cooley's a great guy. Such a good guy.
But he's doing these glasses now specifically for archery, all shooting sports. But
Chuck,
I tell you what a game changer, dude. If you're having that problem, all you have to do is get a hold of Chuck, give him your whatever prescription you have, and he'll hook you up, man.
Yeah,
and it will change your game.
You need glasses that come tight into your eye wells, because if you're pivoting your head correctly when you shoot, and you're just turning your head, like it's, pretty much like it's on a swivel.
Mm-hmm.
I can't shoot with sunglasses. I'm in incorrect form to shoot with sunglasses because of that bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
You kind of need. I actually, Oakley made me some years ago that were one full lens all the way across, and then that European company kind of came out with those later. But I honestly didn't really like them. They were more of I would get eye strain if I didn't wear sunglasses. But if I had my sunglasses on and then took them off to shoot, it kind of distorted my color a little bit.
I don't know how good you guys can see this. I'll hold them up, but you can kind of see. I actually took the nose thing completely off on one side.
Oh yeah.
But these things, that lens lays right on my nose, so you can see right through it. The other really cool thing about them is that you can actually take the lenses out. So I've got some colored lenses that I can put in or anything like that. And these actually have a little bifocal because I can't see up close. So they got a bifocal right in the bottom. So it allows me to be able to do that as well. So
Chuck Cooley, how's he wanting people to contact him? I don't know if
he's got, I actually did a
text him quick.
Post a while back,
text him quick and just say, hey, I'm on a podcast.
I don't
know if he wants us to give out his cell number. I've got that too.
Yeah, but maybe not.
But just text him and say,
I'll do that.
What contact information do you want Dudley to give out? Because there's people watching this right now that I'm guaranteeing.
Yeah, they're going to want it.
Yeah.
It's such a game changer. I mean, I didn't even realize how blind I was. I mean,
honestly,
but I knew I couldn't shoot as good as I used to. And, I have a lot of reasons for that, but a lot of it's just getting old. But if you can't see it, you can't hit it. Well, that's all there is to it.
The sad thing is I'm really not that blind. I'm out of focus. I'm not even blind. I'm the difference of like a binocular that, has kind of your plus or minus dialed perfectly, or turning it one tick where it's like, honestly, all I feel like is that my vision, I feel like I'm looking through. It's like your camera on your phone when you have a fingerprint right on the lens.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're like, why isn't that crisp? That's kind of where I'm at. I haven't like fallen down the blind as a billy goat thing, but I'm really excited to be able to hear where a turkey gobbles and hear where an elk bugles, because I can tell you, it's not sometimes, it's every time where like I'll just catch a certain part of the bugle, and I'll be like all excited and I'll like look at Caleb or my guide and I'll just like point like, I heard that one, he's that way. And then every time they just like look at me and they're just like, he's over there.
Me too.
Like I'm always pointing the wrong way. So I'm looking forward to having my ears on point. And I wore Walker's game ears for a long time, and they honestly, they really, really, really help. If you're someone who just struggles with what I'm saying, get some Walker's game ears. If nothing else, they work great. The thing that I like about these new ones is they were actually adjusted to my specific difficulties in my hearing and frequencies that I can't hear. So when you go in for a proper ear test, they say certain words, like they'll say chocolate Christmas. And then she'll say, what did I just say? It'll be in one side. It'll be like chocolate Christmas. And then she'll say, repeat back what I said. And then I'll say something like, I don't know what rhymes with chocolate Christmas, but I'll say something that definitely was not that. And she's just like, no.
It's amazing what they can do. They actually tune them because you're, at least like me, I can hear low frequency pretty good, but it's the high frequency I can't hear.
Yeah.
And so, that's the whole thing is, and they tune them so you can actually, the regular frequencies sound the same. Yeah. But it's the higher stuff that you can hear. But I'm just like you. When I hunt with Caitlin, my daughter, a lot, and she's filming for us, and we hear a bull bugling, and I know he's this way and he's this way 100% of the time. And for a long time, I was argued with her. I said, "We're going the wrong freaking way," and then pretty quick, there's a bull right from us. So
it's so true.
Hey man, Chuck got back to me already. He says it's Chuck Cooley Archer on Facebook and also Classic Optical in Ithaca, New York. So Google that or look at it on Facebook. Chuck Cooley, Cooley.
Chuck is such a good guy. Too.
He's a good dude, and he knows his stuff, man.
He's an archer. Does. Yeah, he's a legit archer. He's a lifer in archery too. Yeah, I've been doing it forever, and I tell you, it's made a difference for me. Like I can't even. I wear these all the time. Actually, these are my shooting glasses, but half the time I just wear them to work and everything else. It's the only difference. I've got my bifocal is a little bit lower than my regular glasses that I would wear normally to work, but heck, I wear them all the time. They're awesome. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I need to tell them what's going on. Well, Mike, before I want to ask you a few questions, I probably should have asked good questions at the beginning rather than just, going down me and you talking about what we talk about every time we're on the phone. Yeah. So you talked about Ulmer being a mule deer expert, and truthfully, you're one of the people to where if I was struggling on mule deer, I would 100%. You'd be like one of my top two. Ulmer would be it'd probably be a group text like, "Hey guys, I need to kill this buck. Here's all the assets I have to tell you. What do you think the play is?" I trust you that much when it comes to mule deer for sure, and honestly in other things too. I know bears and elk. You're an assassin, but what do you think is the biggest mistake people make mule deer hunting? Moving too fast generally, or not learning how to glass. I would put both of those very, very high. Walking around and trying to kill a mule deer if you don't already know where he is pretty tough, especially with a bow. So learning how to glass and how to grid a hillside and actually set there on, and when we go out to Nevada, I love hunting Nevada. But the deer density in a lot of places isn't real high, but there's some really good bucks. It's not uncommon to look at the same hillside for 2 hours, 3 hours. And especially with if you're hunting the big ones, those older class 4, 5, 6-year-old bucks, because when they get to that age class, they change. They're a lot like whitetail. Whitetail did the same thing. Yeah. But those big mature deer, when they get to a certain age, that's why you always see that lower age class. You go mule deer hunting, you see all kinds of, they might be nice bucks. They're 140, 150 inch bucks. But those big ones, even though they're there, you just don't see them, and because they'll go nocturnal a lot like a whitetail will. If you're hunting the open country, I find more big, huge mule deer country in the open country right about 11, 12 o'clock in the day, because that sun comes around and I like to hunt them in August, so it's hot, and they'll get up and change. Yeah. And they want to stay in the shade.
I like hunting them when they're in the velvet because, again, they're a lot more predictable. As soon as they rake those horns, they're a different game once again. Yeah. So, those are the things. But as far as when you're trying to get in close to a mule deer, most people push it too fast. You've got to be, patience is an understatement. You got to be, like I say, you've got to be ready to set on that deer for 6 hours or whatever it takes, and most people, years ago, my dad taught me all this stuff. There was a place called Hart Mountain here in Oregon. It's actually a refuge. And back in the 70s and 80s, I've never been any place like it. At that time, it was nothing to see 8 or 10 30-inch bucks every morning, at least. God. Out of maybe 50 or 60 bucks. Right. It was just heaven, honestly. And
sounds like Peace River in its heyday.
It was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it, and I've been looking for it ever since, but I've never found anything that's even close. But, back in those days, that dad and mom, and we had some good friends as well that kind of got dad and mom into archery. And but they would, all shooting recurves, and, they'd sneak up on these big bedded bucks, and instead of waiting for them to stand up, they would like throw a rock or, I'll never forget my dad yelling, "Hey, buck." That was his thing. "Hey, buck." Well, guess what? What happens when you yell, "Hey, buck"? You better be a good running shot. So, and they actually killed a few deer back then, but it's like, gosh, I can only dream about a place like that now with the knowledge and stuff that we have. But again, there wasn't any patience. You've got to have patience, and you've got to, when you're moving in, you've got to make sure that you pick every spot your foot goes and make sure it doesn't make a noise. Because one little thing, man, especially when you're close, one little thing, and it's all.
And you got to think how big their ears are. Their ears are double the size of a whitetail. So even though some people think mule deer are dumber, I don't think they're dumber. I think they have different types of threats. And I think mule deer, they're in the open a lot more. I think their season's shorter too. So I think just naturally their hunting pressure is a little bit less intense, but they definitely can hear as good as an elk. They've got big freaking ears that gather a lot of information.
Right. Well, and if you were trying to stalk a bedded whitetail, you'd have the same problems, because if something's laying still, they notice everything, and I've seen deer through spotting scopes. I've watched deer while people were stalking them, and they literally laying their head down sideways, like they look like they're dead laying there. They're sound asleep, and the person who's stalking them makes one little click, and all of a sudden it's just bang. They're like this, and then the next thing usually is, they're gone. And so,
that's the worst feeling when that rack just swings and all you can see is the forks just turn your way. You're like, oh, I'm done.
Well, you know what's coming. You can be at full draw, and like I said, if you're close enough, you can get a snapshot, but that's about it. But that's the kind of stuff Dad and Mom used to do all the time with the hay buck deal. All the horns would boom and then boom, But I'd love to hunt a place like that was back then. It was crazy. But anyway, but it was a great place to learn a lot about mule deer. And even in those days, those big bucks would be on the ground by daylight. If you saw them, you had literally 20 to 30 minutes of actual visible light. If you didn't find one of them big bucks in the first 20 or 30 minutes, you're going to have to find him in the middle of the day when he's changing beds. Even then, and those were the days when, there wasn't a lot of people hunting them, and there was no gun hunting at that time at all there. So it was just archery and just recurves mostly. So, the escapement was pretty high, but even in those days, and that's what I really learned, that those deer, they're almost a different animal when they get to be that age. They really are. So, and I can say the same thing about whitetail. I'm not an expert on those, but what I've seen about them is about the same thing. When they get that age, they're a different animal.
Yeah, I agree. I think anything 6 or older becomes a different level of elite.
Yeah.
What I found on mule deer is 100% patience, like you said, but a lot of times I've been proven wrong almost every time, trying to know where a mule deer is going when they first get up out of their bed, and then you're like, oh, he's going here. Like, in the morning when you find them, as much as you want to, oh, they're out there in that alfalfa, I'm just going to get to the corner of this post and I'll wait for them to, like, if you see them in the morning, the best thing you can do is bed them down. Like, you have 100%. To be patient enough to bed them down, because now you have time and terrain on your side. Yeah. Or, well, I mean, you might not, but at least you have planning. You have time to plan that navigation.
Yeah, most of the time there's not a good way to predict what they're going to do when they stand up. So the only thing you can do is be as close as you can possibly be when he does.
Yeah,
that's really all you can do. If you're, and one of the reasons I like hunting them in the velvet is they are more predictable. They don't range as much. So, and you'll find deer will be in the same area year after year after year as well. So that little time, usually it's right at the end of August before they rub their horns, they're fully grown. You got all the horn growth you're going to get, but it's before they rub their horns. They're still fairly predictable, and they're usually in bachelor groups or by themselves. A lot of times those great big ones will be by themselves if you're lucky. But, like I said, it's a really good time. Once they rub their horns, then it's a whole nother unpredictability. Because they're not, a mule deer buck doesn't necessarily live on one hillside his whole life. I mean, he might travel 50, 60 miles, maybe more than that.
Yeah.
So the predictability really goes out the window once they rub their horns, and that's a whole nother level of hard. So like I said, the whole key is to be as close as you can possibly be when they get up, and hopefully they will get up where you can get a shot at,
So, okay. Next question is going to be, what do you think the number one mistake is for new elk hunters?
Probably blowing a call too much, if they watched a lot of videos. And look, I love elk hunting, and I shot my 48th one with a bow in Montana. That's number 48. And if you look around, I show you around, we've got plenty. But, back in the 80s, elk calling was a lot easier because nobody did it. And I mean, I was one of the first ones around. I knew some of the old timers that were playing with turkey call diaphragms and stuff like that. And I can tell you, when we first learned how to do a cow call, it was like, my God, I thought we had the magic bullet forever.
Well, you did.
Well, we did at that time.
Yeah.
And we'd call in bulls, and that was before rangefinders, and we'd miss them, and, all kinds of stuff. But, back in the 80s and the 90s, you'd call in 20, 30 bulls a year, here where I live here in Oregon. Now, to be honestly, I learned two things. Number one, if you want to kill a big one, you probably want to leave your call in your pocket 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Because a couple of reasons. Number one, that big one, he's heard it all, number one. And he's usually with a bunch of cows, and calling a big bull away from cows outside of, if you can get in the bedroom with them, which I do occasionally, but not very often, because there's way too much can go wrong. And once you move them out of the bedroom, they're going to find a new one, and it won't be anywhere close to where it is now.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing is, you can get them away from the cows if they're right in the middle of the day sometimes. But like I said, it's a touchy deal because you got to get in pretty close. Outside of that, the calls are, it's cool to call and have them bugle back at you and all that. And you can still call in little bulls, the 2-3-year-old bulls. They're still gullible enough to get in sometimes. But by and large, that's what most new bow hunters, they go out there and they buy a whatever call, a hoochie mama or whatever, and that's what they walk around the woods, and that's what they're doing. And I promise you, they don't sound like an elk, because an elk can know. You can be the best caller in the world, and an elk will still know that you're not, if he's got any experience at all. But that's probably one of the biggest mistakes, honestly. The other one probably is not, and this kind of comes down to shot more than anything else. Their elk are an awful big animal, and they take an awful lot to put down. And so taking those marginal, angle shots or longer than you should be shooting and that kind of stuff, that's another big mistake I see a lot of guys do. They just want to get an arrow in them somewhere. Well, that doesn't really work with anything very well, but it really don't work with elk at all.
Yeah.
So they can take a lot.
Yeah, they are beasts. Yeah, it's funny with the big ones, like that one that I talked about earlier in Utah. that bull actually bugled into that piece of timber. Even in late August, he like screamed into that piece of timber twice just to see if anything would talk back, because honestly, I don't think he would have went in there if anything else was there. I think he was just like, am I alone? And then he's like, okay, yeah, I am alone. Cause he approached it downwind. He like got on the downdraft side of the whole thing. He skirted it. He's like, is anything in this hole? I mean, he really checked it out. And then he yelled in there and nothing talked back. So he's just like, okay, I'm good to go.
Yeah. But a bull of that age, he was probably yelling in there to warn anything that was in there, they better get the hell out. Because they get that attitude when they get that age. They really do. And the other time late in the rut, it kind of post rut, and actually my Montana hunt was that way this year. It was in on, like the first week of October, and the rut was really paring down pretty hard. And we actually were, I showed up in camp real late at night, so I didn't even get up. I got up and shot my bow and did all, rather than trying to push it. Yeah. And we got in the Ranger and took out from camp about 11 o'clock. And it's real steep there. So we went up this hogback, and just happened that there was a bull laying in the edge of the road. He bedded right in the edge of this old road. And we saw him get up, and he dove off into this just thick north slope stuff, just super nasty, thick stuff. Well, we just went past and went on up, and was looking around. And when I got back around, I could look, and I was seeing the side of that hill, and there was a big rock slide, probably 100 yards long, wide. And gosh, it went almost the whole length of this ridge. And it was about 200 yards under the top of this mountain where this bull was. So it's like, we didn't push that bull. There's no way he went across and dove off in that, past that rock slide. So I kind of knew we had him sort of, kind of cornered up there a little bit. So my guide, I think, thought I was kind of full of crap. But anyway, I said, hey, we're going to go kill that bull. And he goes, yeah, okay. Because, it's just dog hair thick. It's like this. Yeah. So, but again, I knew that at that time of the year that a lot of those bulls had pull off away, and that's what they want. They want to be by themselves. They've been beaten up on all throughout the rut and everything else, and they just want to be by themselves. So, and I've been in this situation quite a few times. So I just have a set of raking horns. So I just go up, and about every 50 yards, I, rake. And it's so thick. And there was three of us, it's myself, my guy, and the camera guy. And there's no way we're going to get through this quiet anyway, right? So we just kind of pick our way through there, just not fast, but, just kind of how an elk would walk, right? And just rub horns. And anyway, we get almost to the top, and this one is kind of a crazy one that I would never have predicted, but I'm actually raking my horns up and down, and making all kinds of racket. And I'm looking right in front of me, and I see this movement, and I see what it was, and I see there was a whitetail buck. Giant freaking whitetail buck at 20 yards laying there looking at us. He watched me rake the horns and everything. Finally, he just gets up and walks off. Well, I had one little narrow slot. So I'm at full draw, hoping he'd come through. Well, he didn't come through there, and I'm thinking, oh, crap. He was a gigantic freaking buck, right? And I have a deer tag in my pocket, of course. But anyway, we went about another 100 yards, and on the next rake, that bull, I see something moving in front of me, and then I hear him, and he just starts tearing this tree up. And he's no more than 20 yards, and all you can just see is a tine once in a while, and this back and forth. So he just sat there and probably did that for 10 minutes. Just tore this tree all to hell. Never bugled, never nothing, But he knew that I was there, and I just kind of took a horn and just sort of, kind of the same thing. Not really making a lot of noise, just kind of trying to give him a little bit of a visual. And sure enough, we sat there, and pretty quick, here he comes. I was hoping he was going to come across broadside, but he doesn't. Come walking right straight in,
Yeah, for sure.
And at about 10 yards, he was quartering hard to me. He wasn't straight on me. He was quartering to me. And, it's the only shot I'm going to get at 10 yards. It's not, I'm usually not a big advocate of head-on shots personally, but on elk, but I took it. And anyway, it actually ended up, it wasn't great because it completely broke that shoulder. And then it went in, and then we tracked him over the hill, and actually he didn't go very far. I had to get down and shoot him one more time, but it messed him up pretty good. But that was a cool call in, because it really was, I never really even used my diaphragm at all.
Yeah.
It was just because, but that's that time of year after that rut's over, those elk don't want to be around nobody else, and they'll defend that bedding area, So anyway, that's the tech tip I probably shouldn't be telling everybody, but
it works good. Yeah.
When it's like anything, nothing works every time, but sometimes, you just got to have that bag of tricks.
Yeah. There's been times where I've had a bull hung up and I start going, making a racket, and people are looking at me like, what, why are you doing that? But because honestly, a big bull, if another big bull's challenging him, it sounds like someone's taking a baseball bat to a mailbox post.
Yeah.
And when I've had a lot of mature bulls come in when I'm literally breaking a sweat, beating a tree with as big of a limb or blow down as I can find, and they get really worked up and they'll start screaming at you too. And if you don't do it back, it makes them madder. Yeah. It really does.
What a lot of people don't realize is the most aggressive elk call in the woods is horns on brush.
Yeah.
The most aggressive thing you can do to a bull is rub your horns at, rub antlers at it, rub sticks, whatever. I actually carry a set of horns with me specifically for that reason. I actually have had some luck rattling them too, banging the horns together and doing the rattle thing. Ralph Ramos, a buddy of mine in New Mexico, we hunted with him a couple of years ago. Caitlin did a tag down there, and I mean, it's insane the noise that he makes with those horns crashing them together and everything else. And you can have the nastiest, raspiest bugle you want, but it still isn't nearly as aggressive to that bull as just raking a horn and raking it aggressively. And once you get him to do it back, he's yours, baby. All you gotta do is keep the wind right and shoot straight.
Yep. Yeah. So true. Well, Mike, it's been awesome. Turkey season opens for me this weekend, so I'll be hexed up waiting for birds.
Bundle up, man. Be a man.
It's a game changer for birds. Yeah, it's a game changer for birds. But it's always awesome to talk to you. I hope you get your levitate soon. I want to talk to you after you get that.
Yeah, I'm excited to get it. I'm going to Africa in July. Kind of kicking around going after a buffalo maybe. So kind of putting some arrows together. Yeah, I'm putting some arrows together. That one, that levitate, if Lonnie's listening, I could sure use that here pretty soon, buddy.
Come on, Lonnie.
Yeah, well, I didn't order one as soon as I should have. I knew I should have ordered one sooner. But I got to tell you, my mock has just been lights out. It's honestly the best bow I've ever shot. And so it's going to have to, that levitate's going to have to do a little bit, but everybody says it will.
Confident. I'm 100% confident.
I have no doubt. You told me it would, and you've never lied to me yet. So I'm looking forward to getting it and run some big heavy arrows through it, and who knows, maybe we'll shoot a buffalo and we're over in Africa.
I knew what was going to happen, and honestly, when PSE was making the part numbers, I ordered a ridiculous number of bows. I mean, luckily it's not like charged at the time, because Sharon would have been like, what in the freak? But I knew I was going to want several. And I knew that every friend that I have that comes here and goes to school, I knew all of them would want it. So I ordered a pile, and I'm still getting them in. And I tried telling everybody, like, listen, these things are made by hand. It's a very time consuming process, and there's just nothing that can be done about it. So they're going to be tough to get. And if you can get it, go get it. Like, I saw a dealer.
I kind of wishing I would have had him send me two, but it's like, like I said, it'll be my number one. My mock will be my backup bow, and that'll probably be okay. But yeah, no, I can't hardly wait to get it. I'm excited.
What poundage are you going to take?
I ordered it at 70, and they usually pop in a little heavier than that. To be honest with you, I can't really shoot much more weight with that. I had that shoulder issue for a long time, and it's actually good now, but I'm still, I don't want to pull any more weight than that. I'll build the arrow to work with.
What color are you going to get?
You know what? I told him I didn't really care, whatever he sent me. So
I might have a 75 pounder I can send you. If nothing else, I should send you like the one that I used all last year. Yeah. I've got a, that's one of the perks is I get 75 pound max limbs, Lonnie. Mm-hmm. Now if Lonnie's listening, he's really going to be pissed. He's gonna be like I said, do not tell people
the 70 is probably enough for me anyway. But the other one is I kind of request, are they doing the smaller cam yet? Because I'm a 28.5-inch draw, so probably that smaller cam would be a little bit better, maybe.
It's 1 foot per second faster. The big cam is so efficient that the small cam is actually only 1 foot per second faster. Wow. The difference is in the draw cycle. The draw cycle on the small cam is a little bit more aggressive. But the truth is your wall is probably what you're going to want with that number 2 cam. But yeah, we need to get you one. It's a freaking game changer. I mean, I've never shot a sight scale so fast. To be able to have my, with a 2-pin sight, to be able to have my top pin at 20 and my second pin at like 39.5.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, when you've got that, well, dang, 20 to 50, I'm solid.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I mean, you've always had that 31 or 32-inch draw advantage, which makes a lot of difference too. But yes, I've always been challenged with that. But yeah, if it's only that much difference, because it was more difference on the mock, because I have a big cam mock and a small cam mock, and it was like 5 or 6 feet on it.
Yeah. So efficiency is just getting so maxed out now. But.
Yeah. Well, one thing about it, they're unbelievable. There's no doubt. So I can't wait to get it.
Cool, man. Well, have a good weekend, and make sure any of you listening who haven't ever heard of Mike Slinkard, you should just Google him, because he is one of my great friends. I mean, we've been friends. I don't know. We've been mutually, respecting each other from a bow hunting world. It has to be 3 decades.
Well, at least. Yeah.
So
it's sad to say that, isn't it? It's sad to say anything 3 decades, but hey, when you get old, I guess that's what you got.
Last year Ulmer told me, he said, he's like, he said, I always thought it'd be cool if someone called me an icon, but he's like, now when someone says that, he's like, I feel like I'm about dead.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I feel like
it feels like you're way past. Like once you make it to that, you're like, oh no, I don't have much time left.
Yeah, and if the truth was known, Randy was an icon all along.
I know. So awesome. He came to Colorado. Him and Pellegrino and Duggo all came to Colorado TAC to shoot the course with me.
Nice.
And that was super awesome last year. And then this past weekend, Bobby Ketcher came out.
Did he really? I'll be darned.
Yeah,
I haven't seen Bobby in forever.
I know. I gave him the biggest hug, and he looks like Jerry Carter, dude.
Does he really?
Yeah. He looks like Jerry in his, like when Jerry was 50. He's got like that same length like goatee,
right?
And the gray, and he's Jerry Carter has very like happy eyes. Jerry, he always just looks like a really good person in his eyes, and Bobby Ketcher has the same type of eyes. So it was pretty cool. I'll have to send you a picture of us.
You should. I haven't seen Bobby forever. That'd be cool.
It was so fun. Yeah, I gave him the biggest hug, and he said, he's like, you know what? He goes, I have no drive at all to compete anymore. I can't dedicate the time, and I know how good the guys are that do, which is where we were 20 years ago, right? And
it's all the same guys that were kicking ass then or kicking ass still, and in the old guys class. I mean, man, it's pretty tight.
Yeah. I found my first pro card the other day. I was like cleaning. I've been throwing out so much crap. But,
I have mine in my range, and it looks like an antique setting up on my. It's up on my. I forgot up on the wall in my range, and just so if people that come in and watch me shoot nowadays say, "Man, why the hell did you have that card?" But anyway,
mine. My ASA number is 697.
Is it?
Yeah,
I can't remember what mine is, but.
And I shot up. I think I shot like a 206 or something, which back then, if you were 2 to 10 up, you were leading. You were in a good shape.
Oh, but, yeah. If you were over par, man, you were winning.
Yeah.
You know.
Signed by Alan Connor, which
nice.
Which is kind of cool. You know, got another. I'm going to.
Yeah, hell, Alan's shooting good though nowadays. I see him on
Michael Braden, Connor, all of them are shooting really good. I'm gonna show you this picture of me and Bobby here quick on camera.
Oh, no way! I'll be darned. He does look like Gary, doesn't he?
I told you he looks just like him. Same eyes, but. Yeah, it's you guys make sure you look up Mike. Built the best string in the world. Obviously, I'm a big believer in what he's doing right now with Hex, and just been in the industry a long time. Friends with the best ones, and I mean, for those watching the video, you can see he's shot a bunch of stuff, but I think he's like me.
Here and there. Here, let's go around the room a little bit.
Oh God, Mike. Jeez.
God! There's a little red stag, and there's a few things in there. So yeah, we just redid my trophy room. So I'm kind of proud of it. There used to be a wall right where I'm sitting when my daughters were home. This was their play area, and one of our deals was when they left, we were going to knock this wall out and redo it. And so yeah, I got all my stuff down here now. So.
That's awesome. Well, thanks,
plus
dude.
What's at the office? At the office looks just like it, only a little smaller. But hey, John, I appreciate it. One of the neat things about archery is you get to know the best people. There's no doubt. It's been a blessing, honestly, to be in it this long. It really has.
I agree. Well, cool, man. Have a good weekend and good luck with your turkey season.
Oh, yeah. It's getting ready to start if we can stay warm enough. All right, man. Thanks,
Nock On, everybody.
See you later.
Be sure to check out knockonarchery.com for our full line of custom designed products, as well as free in-depth education and bow hunting entertainment to help you shoot at your best.